Alright, I've used up my 2 quarts of primer, which is 1 quart more than I was planning on using. But it's looking pretty good. I'm going to sand this thing down with some 320 grit sandpaper, and then I will start with the regular paint. This guy's dried for 24 hours. It's looking pretty good. I've also flipped my drawer upside down and my doors upside down, so I'm going to be doing a second coat on this bench seat and then a first coat on the other faces of my doors and drawer. Okay, I have everything set up to spray paint on the bottom of the bench seat and also do another layer on the front faces and inside of that drawer. When you're spraying with paint that's thinned with xylene, you really want the organic vapor respirators. I want to make a public shout out to my tiny little Cobalt 1.5 gallon air compressor. It's rated at 2.4 standard cubic feet per minute at 90 psi, and it's really not quite enough for air spraying, but it worked like a champ. It only had a high temperature cutoff a couple of times, and it got the job done. Probably be upgrading at some point though. The air sprayer is just about the only way to get something like that with all those crevices and crannies. I even got a little bit of coverage way deep under the back of the seat there. Most of this I rolled in the garage just because then I don't have to worry about trying to carry it back into the garage while the paint's wet if it starts threatening to rain. So the spray gives a little bit nicer surface coverage, I think. You do have to dilute the paint with xylene to get to spray with an air sprayer, so if you're doing this professionally, you'd want a airless spray system. But rolling also works pretty darn well, and if you're inside a garage, you don't want to spray in your garage, rolling's your only option. There are, of course, certain downsides to painting outdoors. I have 2 openings for doors, and I have 2 doors. But of course I painted over the markings on the inside which said which was left door and which was center door, and the hinge holes aren't going to line up, and this door here is a little bit wider at that end. So I'm pretty sure this is the right hand door because the right hand side over there should be taller than the center. So we're going to go with that. If it doesn't work, I'm just going to have to reverse them. see it in exactly the right light, but that little drip there is bothering me. Also, these bugs over here. So I'm going to sand them off, do a coat of paint on probably just the top of the drawer and that little area there, and that will hopefully be my last bit of painting. It's been 24 hours and here I am screwing all my hardware on. Now this paint is dry, but I suspect with having that hardware screwed onto it, the hardware will stick to the paint. In some cases, like these drawer rails, that'll actually add a little bit of structural stability and spread the weight across that entire panel. In some cases, like these hinges, it's really not helping at all, and it basically just means in the future when you take these hinges off, the paint's going to come ripping off with it. Ask me if I care. I need to get this thing done. The bench seat, when carrying, is 79 pounds. We leave the drawer out to carry it because it gives a handhold, and it removes 10 pounds because that drawer with all the hardware and the paint is 10 pounds of weight. Now when I built this, I deliberately tilted this guy downward slightly, but I still have puddles of water from the rain here. And it's not giant pools, it's just little bits here, so it might just be that the surface tension of the water is beating up and not letting it roll down that slight incline, or it might be that my incline wasn't enough. We'll see how things work out when it gets in the water. I'm especially worried because the rear of the boat's going to be heavier, and so this thing may sit back in the water. That drawer is just a little bit too wide, and it makes things just a little bit tighter than I'd like. I made this drawer just slightly too wide, and you can see here where that drawer rail is scraping the paint because they're being pushed in a little bit too much. So the real solution is to make the drawer slightly narrower, you know, a 1/16 of an inch narrower, maybe an 1/8 of an inch narrower. So I could grind down the fiberglass underneath this drawer rail and mount it in a little bit. But I think the first thing I'm going to try is grinding down just this area of the fiberglass and paint where it's touching that drawer rail, and seeing if the drawer rails will slide nicely without that touching there. Because when I was trying this in the bench seat before it was painted, it slid very nicely. So it might just be that if I grind just down just a tiny bit here, it'll start working better. It might also be that when I put this guy on the boat, the weight of it is moving things slightly from where it was in the bench seat or when it was up on the sawhorses. Since there's nothing along the bottom, it's possible these two outer edges had spread out a little bit when the drawer went in. Okay, I have my big boy Dremel out, and we are going to grind this down. Grinding that groove over there made a very magical improvement in the drawer operation here. It's not silky smooth by any stretch of the imagination, and you have to push a little bit at the very end there. So I think I might grind a little bit off the other corner, but you know, you can pull it out with one finger, so it's plenty easy enough for moving. I am also looking like I'm hitting this screw on the very bottom of that drawer, so my tolerances are a little closer than I would have liked, but it opens and closes just fine. I believe touching up that little grind out with paint will be the last painting I'm going to do for a couple of months on this project, so I can take this giant tub of painting supplies and get it out of my garage for a few months anyways. Alright, with that bracket and this bracket here, this guy is nice and sturdy now. And with those brackets holding that guy down, the bench seat is finished. Next up, motors.